And joining us now for an outlook from her state of Oklahoma, State Secretary of Agriculture Blayne joining us with the latest. So thank you for your time this morning, Secretary. First, can you give us an update on current conditions in the region?
Yes, thank you for having me on. Certainly very challenging conditions here in Oklahoma. The largest fire that we have going that started there in Beaver County up in the Panhandle is just 20% contained as of today. Certainly very devastating for our livestock producers there in the area. I had a chance to go out and visit with several of them on Wednesday of this week. That fire started up on Tuesday. And so incredibly challenging conditions as the fire moved through, the impact that it had to those livestock. But then, as you can imagine, still very, very dry across the state of Oklahoma. We've had fires continue to start up yesterday. We've got a little bit of a break from the weather today and through the weekend, but then we are preparing with our forestry team and our Office of Emergency Management here in Oklahoma to be ready for some challenging fire conditions next week.
Definitely. And you mentioned 20% contained. I know that you're doing everything you can to kind of let that number grow more. And I know you mentioned you were boots on the ground, kind of touring these areas that are damaged. So what are you hearing from people in those communities?
You know, I think the big challenge, and you probably know this, a lot of folks were impacted by the 2017 fire in that same area. So pretty devastating for those folks. But then on the positive side, as all of our farmers and ranchers are, they're exceptional neighbors. They're very resilient. We had a chance to visit with one producer who had her veterinarian there on site assessing. She had some first calf heifers that were calving and making decisions of what they needed to do with the animals who had been impacted by the fire. So there's no question, tons of resilience in that area, tons of support from across Oklahoma, but even from other states that folks are sending hay, they're sending supplies. Our Cattlemen's Foundation is taking any donations so that we can provide appropriate response there. So incredibly challenging conditions, but also seeing kind of that spirit of our ag producers chipping in to help others when they need it.
And you mentioned that 2017 fire. It's so unfortunate that there's producers that had to deal with that fire in 2017, and they're having a similar experience now. We talked to a producer out of Kansas this morning that has that type of situation going on. So how do you think that Starbuck fire back in 2017 compares to this fire going on right now?
You know, something that was interesting to hear from several of our producers compared to the Starbuck fire, some of them actually didn't lose any cattle in the Starbuck fire. Certainly we had lots of producers that did, but several individuals that we had the chance to talk to said on Tuesday that fire moved so quickly that they weren't able to open gates or cut fences or move cattle like they had a little bit of time to prepare back in 2017. So I would say several of the producers that I talked to directly felt like they had an even more severe impact from this fire, unfortunately, and also challenging when a lot of them had done a lot of great things to be as prepared as possible. They were relocating animals. They pay attention to the weather and the forecast and making the best decisions that they could. And still just the severity of the way that fire came through was pretty devastating to them. And they're tough folks. They live out there because they are tough folks, and that is tough country to live in. But a lot more just cattle loss than several of them had seen in 2017.
Well, and you mentioned they're tough folks, and also we know as an ag community, so many people coming together to help out. And are you expecting any big ripple effects for agriculture from this current fire?
You know, I think it's certainly going to impact our producers there in the Panhandle. Another positive is the Farm Service Agency teams are already communicating with those producers. There's a multitude of programs that are available from USDA. But I think for a lot of them, they're deciding what does rebuilding that herd look like, trying to decide, am I going to push some cattle to other parts of the state or to other folks that have pasture maybe in other states, and making kind of those decisions for that particular area. Ag is certainly what drives the economy out there. And so we'll do as a state everything that we can to be of assistance to them. And I know our federal partners at USDA are doing the same. So definitely will be some challenges moving forward as folks decide whether or not to restock or rebuild those herds or what that looks like in the short term. I will tell you the one thing we really need is for everybody to pray for some rain. The sand is really blowing out there in the Panhandle and Beaver County after the fire. So moisture is probably what everybody needs more than anything here in the next few days.
It's a great way to wrap it up. As much as, we can go to our website to get resources and how to help out, I think thoughts and prayers is also such a big thing. So, Secretary, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck on all your continued work in making sure that this fire doesn't continue to affect agriculture.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Oklahoma Secretary of Agriculture Blayne Arthur.